Welcome to Journey to the Sunnyside, the podcast where we have thoughtful conversations to explore the science of habits, uncover the secrets to mindful living, and of course, inspire your own mindful drinking journey. This podcast is brought to you by Sunnyside, the #1 alcohol moderation platform. And if you could benefit from drinking a bit less, head on over to sunnyside.co to get a free 15-day trial. I'm your host, Mike Hardenbrook, published author, neuroscience enthusiast, and habit change expert. Join us in this episode as Don Peasley takes us through his journey towards mindful drinking, demonstrating that even small adjustments can lead to significant change. Learn about how leveraging tools like the Sunnyside app can assist in setting realistic goals for long-term success. Whether you're looking to rethink your relationship with alcohol or seeking strategies to be more mindful, Don's practical approach provides valuable insights and actionable steps for anyone looking to make positive change. Okay, today I'm here with Don Peasley, and Don is actually a Sunnyside customer, and we love to hear from customers. So we're going to hear a little bit about his story, his experiences, and the results that he's achieved. But let's just start with some introductions. And Don, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to this journey of mindful drinking?
Yeah. Well, first, thanks for having me on, Mike. I appreciate this. And I'm glad it's a podcast format because I can go long on this and we don't have to worry about it. There's a lot of kind of background story on this. So first of all, again, Don Peasley, I'm sitting here outside of Detroit, Michigan, and I have been a drinker since I was probably about 15 or 16 years old. And it was about a little less than 2 years ago. I had a confluence of things kind of come my way that let me know it was time to start actually thinking about my drinking and what that meant. Couple of things. My wife, who I have been a longtime caregiver with, died last year, and so that'll get your attention when you see somebody way too young to be losing all those years on the back end and being sick for as long as she was. She lost a lot of time while she was here. So that was a bit of a wake up call. Also, I had some heart issues that popped up right about when she passed away. And I always told myself after these amazingly positive trips to the doctor's office that I was always one bad appointment away from making some changes in my life. And when you hear that you've got what I ended up having was AFib, and that drinking is a contributing factor to heart issues, and the cardiologists are saying you might want to think about your drinking, and that's another one. And then the other one's kind of a fun one. My son and I were auditioning to be on The Amazing Race, and I don't think I was TV ready at the time. So we got a trainer, a nutritionist, to kind of give us some help in getting ready in case we ended up getting on the show, which we didn't, by the way, which is a whole other thing. But anyway, so you get all these things coming to you, and I had been really thinking about, okay, what changes are you going to make now? And I made a lot of changes at the same time. Um, Again, working with a trainer, thinking about nutrition, focusing on how much sleep I get, all the steps that I get. But the one thing that trainer wasn't responsible for was the drinking. And I actually got served an ad on Facebook, I think, and this notion of not quitting. And I've had a lot of friends who have had to make the decision over the years that it was time. And I always wondered if it was going to be my time to quit. But the ad and the way Sunnyside positions it is moderation. You can change behaviors without having to quit and go completely dry. And it made sense to me. So I made the decision that this was something and this was the time that I needed to do. And the more you start thinking about how all these things come together, um, what you eat, how much you sleep, how much you work out, do you sit all day, do you move, how much do you drink, when do you drink? It's all mindfulness. Everything is a decision. And I think if I were to have to give this like that elevator speech as to why Sunnyside works, if you stop for a second every time before you take a drink and think, is this what I should be doing? Is this when I should be doing it? Have I had enough? Is today a day where I take it easy on myself and don't put alcohol in my body? you start making decisions in a different way on all these levels, and you can do it with drinking. And I don't think I know I never thought about, is there a way to behave differently with alcohol? It was either today I'm drinking, and if I'm drinking, it's go time. And I joked with Ian at Sunnyside when we met about spending 40 years as a mindless drinker. And I've spent the last year and a half as a mindful drinker, and the benefits are just amazing.
That's such a great story, and I love to hear that. And it's true, if you approach it sort of almost as like all the things that you were doing in your life to improve your health, you just took the same approach, kind of like learning a new habit and unlearning maybe ones that you no longer want to keep in your life. But take me back a little bit to that point when you decided to take some action, before there was probably a point where you thought, well, maybe I'll stop altogether. And obviously that was not the route you took. So what was it between sort of those two choices about giving it up or taking an extended break or being mindful and reducing or cutting back? What was going through your mind that you just thought, yeah, this is the way I want to go?
Um, that your life is just this accumulation of experiences, and I think there were two conversations that I had with different people that came into my head when I started to think that it was time. Several years ago, I was doing a little therapy, and one of the things I asked the therapist to give me an honest assessment was, did she think I was an alcoholic? And she very quickly said no. And I was kind of surprised by that. I was thinking she was about to break some news that I wasn't ready to hear. She said no, and I'll tell you why. When you filled out your intake form, we asked about drug and alcohol use and all this other stuff, and she said you didn't lie on your intake form. That's a good number of drinks you're having every week, and if you're an alcoholic, they always lie, and you didn't lie. And that always struck me as okay. I'm not an alcoholic, but she did say that you have to think about your relationship with alcohol. And she just advised that. She goes, you got other things that we can work on. You're not an alcoholic. And I'm like, okay, so I'm not an alcoholic. Good. But she did tell me I have a relationship issue with the bottle. And so that was interesting. And then I was having a chat with a friend of mine who had a friend who had to go completely sober. And what he said was, an alcoholic can go a couple days without drinking. They can go 4, 5, 6, 7 days. It's once you start and the engine revs up and you get going and you don't stop. And the next thing you know, you've had 8 to 10 drinks and you're a mess. Um, that conversation kind of was ringing in my head, because it wasn't like I was drinking every day. It wasn't like I was getting drunk all the time. I just knew that I was not thinking it through. And so when you get into the app and the app says, let's come up with a plan, start with tell us how much you drink. And I've recommended this app to a lot of my friends, and there isn't one of them who isn't shocked when they first put the number down, and then that first week of tracking, and these numbers are just big, and these are people with jobs and families, and they're not alcoholics. They just never really thought about it. And so, the other part of this equation for me is I teach yoga. So by day, I'm an advertising guy. I work in advertising. But my side hustle for the last 6 years has been teaching yoga. And it felt really inauthentic to be going in and standing in front of a room full of people. Some of them are there just for the workout. Some of them are there for the quiet, the heat, whatever they're there for. In a way, they're all there for something more than they know. And for me to get up there and try to talk to people about using your breath to make better decisions, to calm yourself down, talking of mindfulness. And then there's this little monster that keeps getting out in me where once the party starts, it doesn't end until it ends. And so I felt kind of inauthentic too. And, my friends over the last year and a half since I started using the app, they're joking. They noticed. They'll see this little move that I can tell you about. I don't know if we have to pay San Pellegrino now for this, but um, I show up to your party and I'm generally going to bring a bottle of something. And it might be for you. It's probably for me because I have my own taste. Um, I still do that, but I also bring a 6-pack of bottled water and I'll put that someplace. And um, I'll make sure I'm alternating and slowing myself down. And um, it's just this ability that I never thought I had. I never thought I'm going to plan how much I'm going to drink. I'm going to plan when I'm going to drink. And the cool news is, after a while, you don't even have to plan. It becomes natural. You start to cherish dry days. Like, oh, I know I'm not drinking for 3 days this week. I'm just going to go. I'm not even going to think about it. So you take it off the plate, and then you just start to feel, my body really feels different when I give it a little bit of a rest. So once you get into it, it's less about the app and more about the behaviors that you've created. And it is noticeable. And again, my friends give me stuff about it all the time, and I'm fine with it. That's, they can joke all they want, but no one's carrying me home tonight.
Yeah, exactly. And to your point about bringing that mindfulness to the drinking in the same way that we do with our diets. Most people, when they're told, hey, you got to keep a food or a drink diary of like what liquids you're drinking, water or soda or whatever, I think they're always shocked at the end of the week or 2 weeks of tracking that. Um, so I think bringing that mindfulness, why wouldn't you, if you're doing it in all other areas of your life, why wouldn't you bring it to other parts that affect your health, like drinking? And I
Yeah.
totally identify with the part about the yoga and feeling inauthentic because I had uh, a time in my life where the only way for me as an entrepreneur to shut down in the evening was to have wine. That was the time to quit.
Yeah.
But here I was giving advice for businesses, and also I was healthy in all other ways. I was always active and working out, but it felt inauthentic. It didn't align to the version of myself that I saw, even though it wasn't to an extent where I guess you put a label on it, like, or have some sort of program that you need to get into. So I'm curious to know. So, like, what does a healthy lifestyle look like that still involves alcohol for you?
Yeah. I again, I look at the week ahead, and I plan my workouts. I plan what I'm going to eat. Um, and in that, I also plan the nights that I'll be either out or I'll have friends over. And I'll know that if I don't protect some of those nights when I don't have any social commitments, like you said, coming home from work, advertising, it's not the Mad Men days like it used to be, but there's almost a permission and an expectation that you could be out any night of the week at some event or just meeting up with colleagues at a pub. Um, and you just start to plan around that and say, this is what a healthy week is going to look like. And and now I know that that also involves what nights are you going to take off. I mean, I had a friend I got on the app, and he was really struggling, and we sat last month, and it was a large amount. But what was happening is he showed me his month of data, and I go, let's start here. You had one dry day all last month. And this is a successful business owner. I don't know how he does it. I said, why
It's
don't
so
you?
it's so much more common than people
Yeah,
would think, though.
yeah.
It is. I hear about it all the time, and you think that, all right, I want to reduce or take a break or whatever your goal is. And you sort of think that you're alone in this or different than people, but you would just be amazingly shocked at how common and people that you would never dream say, I actually want to cut back on my alcohol, have the same goal.
Well, you talk about being authentic, and people are like, why do you keep talking about this? Why would you go on a podcast and admit that you drank too much? Well, you know what? Everybody I know who drinks has had this conversation with me privately, or we've had it openly in front of other people. Why do you think, dry January is coming up? People know this. And once you start talking about it, like I did with these friends that then said, tell me about the app and how could I get on it? I just, again, back to this friend of mine, I said, think about giving yourself some dry days. Why don't, instead of you getting on yourself for these large amounts, these you've blown past targets, why don't you say next week, I'm going to take 2 days off and see if you can stick to that. And, he's working his way through that. And so, that healthy, it's a plan. And again, I don't think people think about planning their lives out. I have a mentor, mystic actually. He flies above all of us, and he has said this thing about, and I apply it to a lot of things. You either design your life or it will get designed for you.
Hmm.
And if you think about it, maybe a lot of our lives have been designed by the very business that I'm in, advertising or the entertainment industry, where somebody's always got a drink in their hand. They used to always have a cigarette in their hands. And once that stopped, people stopped smoking. So we live in a drinking culture. And that in a way, they've designed our lives for us. And if you think about it, and you can design a week at a time, and then you give yourself grace, because there were days when I didn't hit the targets. I went past them. I knew why. I talked about it. You get a little nudge on the phone, and you think about, why did I blow past it? What decision did I make that said, today I had a plan and I went off of that plan? And then you move on. You give yourself a little grace and you move on. And it's a really unbelievably positive, fun journey, especially when you're talking to other people who have tried it. And they're sharing. I was in Vegas a year ago, and I was just sitting at the bar, and I had a drink limit set even for Vegas. Um, and a woman sat down next to me. We started talking. She was on the app, and she had made the decision that since they were in Vegas, they weren't going to track. And I'm like, that's fine. I said, I'm going to go out tomorrow night, with a friend, and I'm going to blow past whatever limit I set. I know it, but at least I'm sitting here talking to a stranger about mindful drinking, and we were having this really cool conversation. And then we went and had our nights. So I think that's the other thing, is it doesn't feel so harsh when you try to modify your behavior, as opposed to just saying, I'm done, I quit, and now I've got to go sit in a room full of people and talk about it. And for a lot of people, there was no middle ground in my mind. You're either on or you're off, and this is a wonderful place to find yourself, right in the middle.
Very well said. I mean, I can feel that also in just the way things are moving, and culturally speaking, that it's more accepted to do this thing. Like, people don't question it; they don't automatically go, "Oh, well, he must have a problem," or something like that. And I
Yeah,
also think, if you have that middle ground where you're on a reduction plan, or that's your goal, there's not that dividing line between you and maybe the person next to you, because I think most people that drink, even if they haven't taken any action, are or have thought about maybe reducing their alcohol. And so you said this thing about giving yourself grace the next day, and moving past it in a positive way, and I think that that's really important. And you also mentioned things like, you know sober October or dry January, where even quote unquote normal drinkers have a really hard time getting to the backside of that in a successful way. How do you think, or what do you think the big difference is for a positive outcome for what we're doing, the dryish January versus going dry January, and all or nothing kind of thing?
yeah. Look, anytime anyone decides, whether it's the dry January, sober October, if you make a decision that you're going to change your behavior, even if just for a month, it's at least that first level of awareness that I'm doing something for a reason. I think the difference, dryish, is success is about sustainability and consistency. And I know plenty of people who have had dry Januaries, and I'll see them, staggering around a bar in April, or blithering at a party in April,
Or
um,
February 1st?
February 1st, yeah. And I think that okay, they've made an attempt, but they didn't sustain it. It wasn't something consistent. And what what adding dry-ish January, you can partake in this national or global movement of dry January, but you're going to probably be more sustainable if the habits that you create are what you commit to long term. If you're just taking a month off, great. But if you just go back to 12 months out of the year mindlessly, throwing booze in your face, then what did you get done? Okay, get ready for another dry January and then 11 months of being all over the place. And I never thought, I used to joke like dry January was stupid. Why wouldn't you pick February? Because it's a couple days shorter. But I never tried it. Um, I'm going to have a dryish January because I made a decision almost 2 years ago that, I know where I need to be. I know what I want to be. And, my trainer tells me the average American between October 1 and January 1 is going to pick up 10 to 15 pounds. It just happens. It's the holidays. And I'm doing what I can to take the yoga classes, get to the gym. I'm watching what I eat as best I can. I'm going to pick up some pounds. I don't have to like completely blow myself up because I'm not gonna gain 15 pounds. That's not gonna happen. And I'm gonna do it by making good decisions. I'm gonna make good decisions with food. I'm gonna make good decisions with booze. And I'll get to January and I won't need to blow up everything. I won't need to fast or do something different. I'll just recommit and not have all the distractions at the holidays that naturally are gonna present. And I'm gonna have fun, but I'm going to get back to it. And I know I'm going to have a lot of drier days in January than I am having right now here in December. I know it. But if you have that, and then I know that that'll be my plan for the rest of the year. It's not, I don't have to really throttle up or throttle down. I just need to dial it in, get back to being consistent, making sure, my thing is when I'm getting it right, I have more dry days per week than drinking days. So when I'm in a groove, I got 4 dry days in my pocket. Never drink on Sunday. That's the plan. Don't do it. Go into the week, clean and feel good Monday morning. Um, and so I don't need to blow anything up. I know what the plan is. I got it in my head. And again, that's the thing that didn't exist for the first 40 plus years of my drinking career. There was no plan. There was no thought. Just go whenever it's made itself available. And that's, that's it. And you got to have these strategies. I had a friend. We were at our a company holiday party last week, and this is a friend of mine. We've thrown back plenty, and he came out to me and he said, "Hey, I need you to be my accountability buddy tonight." And I go, "What do you need?" He goes, "I want to stop at 5 drinks. I want to have 5 drinks tonight." And he's not on the app, but he's heard me talk about it. And I go, "Okay, so how are we going to do this?" He goes, "I want you to check in on me." And so about every, half hour, 45 minutes, I'd come over and go, "What's your number?" 2. Okay. And we drove home. We had a DD that night and we were in the car and I go, "How'd you do?" And he goes, 6. And I go, "Great. It wasn't 10. And you don't,
Yes.
you did great." And he was happy and he got home and his wife was like, giving him all kinds of credit. And it was really cool. He's seen me and he's seen me go way deep and he's seen me make a change. And I was really proud of him for making that change for himself.
Oh, that's such a good story. And I think you really nailed it. Uh, Maybe not even by on purpose, but when you were talking about, going in January, how you would get more dry days than you would, but you wouldn't even necessarily hold yourself to this strict regiment because it's not a one and done, all or nothing thing in January, and that it's a sustainable thing that you want to do all year long. So,
Yeah.
and getting in January, like it's all about, just like you said, he got to 6, not 5, but not 10. So that's a
Yeah.
win. I think
Yeah.
January, like let's say you get to January 15th, you have one, you go the rest of the month. Well, hey, that's a lot less than you probably did the month before. And it's still a win versus the other outcome, which would be an all or nothing thing. Well, you get 2 weeks in, you messed up. Well, I might as well throw the whole rest of the year out because I already broke my commitment.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, you got to, yeah. It's just finding a rhythm for it. And I'll tell you the other thing is with all the stuff I started with, having to deal with some pretty significant grief, losing my mom or losing my wife, and um, some of the hard issues that I had. Um, by getting the drinking in check as a part of this kind of whole integrated health plan I dropped like 25 pounds last year. I I probably am in the best shape I've been in since my 30s, and I feel better. Um, and so that's the other thing is if you maybe think instead of the drinking being something that's holding me back, maybe it's your leader. If you, I knew my biggest issue wasn't the drinking, but it was part of an overall kind of way I needed to make some change. But if the drinking is the number one thing, you think this is what's holding me back. So make that a leader. Show yourself that you've got some discipline. We all have a lot more discipline inside us than we think. And if you can find that little bit of discipline in that area of your life, everything else can follow. And so for me, um, my thing was just I never paid attention to what I ate. Um, I just whatever I wanted. I was conscious of my weight, but I never really thought about what I was putting in my body. And with a nutrition plan, then that made me think about portions and composition. And that once I started thinking about that, using, and that there was an app for that. And then, I mean, we're in an age where technology is either killing us or helping us, and you got to find the good stuff. This app is so simple too. Just, logging in emojis every time you take a drink. That's kind of fun. It's easy. And same thing with recording food. Once you just make that little bit of extra effort, and it wakes you up to how you're behaving. And again, we get back to mindfulness versus mindlessness. And I tell my students we're all one deep cycle of breath away from a better decision and then a better outcome. And there have been a few nights where I'm not supposed to be drinking. It's a dry night, and something hits, and I'm like, I could make myself a nice martini right now. Take that deep breath, go grab a water, and realize you had a plan. You made a commitment to yourself, and hold yourself accountable. Don't be a baby, you know, be
Oh,
accountable.
I love
So,
that. So tell me how would the app have helped you in that moment?
well, get up and it's a dry day. I mean, and it's a dry day, and you've made a plan. And because you've made that, do you really want to log a drink right now on a dry day? And you're going to get a little note back that says, hey, this was supposed to be a dry. You're going to get a nudge for breaking the plan. And that's so you've got this accountability system built in. And for me, like I would feel like I disappointed the app, like that. On the front end, I was like, I'm going to disappoint somebody. But really, what I was doing was I was holding myself accountable. And now it's I don't need to tell anybody. I don't need to track. I know what I'm doing, and I know when I'm on a plan. Like I said, last night went and watched a football game with a friend, and my plan was a drink at the first half and a drink in the second half, and that's it. And stuck to the plan. That was it. And very easily could have been a halftime drink. Very easily could have been a post game drink. No, you're getting one in the first half, one in the second half, and otherwise you're drinking your water. And it's a lot easier than I think going into it. It's kind of scary. I think it was for me. Um, but once you get these little cheats on how to be a mindful drinker, it's kind of cool, and people notice, and you can feel it. So.
Yeah, I want to hear a story about where you went to a social gathering or a party or something like that where maybe it was a little bit challenging, but you came through on the other side the way that you had planned.
It happened just earlier this month, and it's a holiday party I've gone to for 15 years, best friends, and there wasn't one time when I left that party. I think 3 years ago. It's a walkable distance home, and I didn't want to wait for an Uber. I needed some fresh air, and I staggered the half-mile home. This is a known time bomb for me. Just it's gonna be bad. And I made a decision. I said, you're going to stick to a plan tonight, and you're not going to have a number of drinks, but you will not get the next drink until this is gone. And so they have this bartender helper who's been at these parties. She's been there for all 15 years. She's their go-to. And I walked up and I said, Colleen, here's the deal. Here's a bottle of some really nice whiskey. It's mine and my friends, and don't give it to anybody else. I said, and then here's a 6-pack of San Pellegrino. Don't give that to anybody else. When I ask you for that next drink, you ask me if I have my water. And she goes, okay, deal. And got done with the first one. Great. Went and grabbed a water and stuck to it. And every time I asked for a drink, Colleen said, did you have your water? And I'm like, here's my empty bottle to prove it. Now get me in. So, um, and with about an hour to go, we called an Uber, but I could have driven home the half mile. I could have walked home the half mile. I was not, I had a good time. I remember the whole night. I remember who I talked to. I remember what I talked about. Um, and I was not that guy at the party. That guy was there. It wasn't me. Um, that's 15 years plus of the same party with the same outcomes, except for this year it was different.
Oh, that's so good. I mean, I think we all have those parties where we just know that it's the one party that's probably going to get us. For me, it's Thanksgiving time. My brothers, in-laws all do this huge gathering, and it's always a bottomless, you know, bar setup and a lot of rowdy people. And yeah, so I just am envisioning the same sort of thing for
Yeah.
you, and you came out on the other side. So that's one instance of you winning and in a difficult situation. And I'd be interested to know, like, where in this journey where it started to click for you, where in this journey it started to click for you. You started using Sunnyside,
Mhm.
you started being more mindful. Was there one instance where you went out and you said, huh, that wasn't as hard to change my habits in a way that I normally would have behaved differently, because you started using Sunnyside and because you started being more mindful?
Like, I don't think there was one instance or one moment. I think I'm going to go back to the dry days. I've got a full bar right here in the house, and it's got anything you need. And I've got beer and wine in the refrigerator, and it's ready to go. When I started seeing that it was more common to have those 4 dry days a week without any impact, um, I mean, I'm not going to the pub like I used to, but it's because of the food. It's not because of the drinking. I can't eat that food anymore. It's just doesn't make me feel good. Um, except on days when I decide I want to have something like that. So I think what to me is when I knew it was working, when it was really clicking, and I finally could say I'm a mindful drinker, is when I kept looking and I'm at or below my drink targets, and I've got those dry days. I'm stacking dry days, and that habit, like we talked about earlier, of grabbing that glass of wine because it's easy, it's right there, and I didn't take, I didn't hide the booze on myself. I didn't remove things. It's all sitting right there. I can have it anytime I want. I live alone. Um, I was holding myself accountable with the help of the app to have those nights where no. And you know what? If you really want to have that drink, why don't you just go to bed? Because you know what you need probably more than that drink? You probably need some sleep. And so why don't you just go to bed instead of grabbing that drink at 10 o'clock at night that you don't need? So it wasn't, I don't, I will tell you if there were some instances, the nights when I didn't drink mindfully, and I still have them. There'll be those parties where I don't have a plan or I just decide, let it rip. It happens. And, I have them. And I don't think I've had many lately, but they happen. And then you wake up the next day, you go, so that's what it was like all the time. That's what I was doing all the time. How are you still even alive right now? And again, I get back to, in a way, honoring my wife who had years taken away. And I was giving away weekends, like going hard on Friday, going hard on Saturday, and getting nothing done on Saturday and Sunday because I'm hungover. And it seemed really thoughtless to keep going hard and giving away days instead of waking up and saying, wow, I feel great. What am I going to get done today? Who am I going to interact with? Who can I help today? Um, and so that's when to me, when it all started to come together, it's just having more and more days where I felt like myself, and fewer days when I just was like, this isn't working.
Yes, that's so introspective and also thoughtful, and just to yourself and to your relationship that you had, just holding it with reverence. We talked about basically it taking to feel bad to realize how good you felt. So with the mindful drinking, what are some of the benefits that you've had? Do you feel better health? Do you have better sleep? Do you have more clarity? Maybe you could list off some of what have we talked about the journey to getting a handle and more moderation and more mindfulness. What are the benefits that you've seen?
Well, I mentioned the heart thing. Um, Doctors would prefer I didn't drink at all. Um, that's not going to happen. But I know when I am in an elevated kind of social period, I wear a Fitbit. I need to track some meds just to make sure I know and I feel comfortable. I can watch my heart rate, my resting heart rate, when I'm in one of these periods where I'm not having those dry days, and it starts to rise. It goes up, and then when I go, okay, party boy, time to throttle back and get back into the game, you can watch it come right back down. I mean, the metrics are right there. I can track when I'm not behaving in a way that's consistent with my decision to want to live a long, long time and not do any more to my heart and than I've already done over the years. So, I mean, the data is right there, and I'm a data person. It's why these things work. It's why measurement works for me. Um, so I can tell you right now, my heart knows when I'm drinking mindfully. Literally, it tells me on
Hmm.
my Fitbit, and that to me is it's just amazing that you can just take a look and go, okay, I need to have a cleaner week. Um, the sleep thing, yeah, I know it, and that was one of the big things. Living alone, coming home, or when I was a caregiver, I'd put my wife to bed, and that's like when at 10 o'clock, that's when my night started because I needed some time alone. And it was almost one for one: get her to bed, come downstairs, pour a drink, get on the computer, do whatever. And what was happening is then I'd wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, sitting in a chair with my neck like this, and it hurt. And I had to go to work the next day. I had to be a caregiver the next day. And that wasn't working. And I can probably count on one hand the number of times this past year when I've woken up in a chair. And that was another metric of just, yeah, put your butt in bed. Don't pour it, just go to bed. So, still working on the sleep. There's a lot of other things that keep me up at night beyond the booze. Um, but yeah, the sleep was definitely being impacted, and you can definitely feel it the next day too. So I think those to me those benefits. And then it really is what you're capable of the next day. If I've got now a trainer and we've got a plan and I've committed that Tuesday or Wednesday is a workout day, and if I don't get it shut down the night before, how are you going to go in and exercise and get the most out of the time that you're exercising if you feel like crap going in? And that's how the thing starts to snowball. Because then you have too many drinks the night before, feel like crap the next day. You either don't go to the gym at all, or you put in a half-assed effort, and then you come home, you feel like you're not great, so you maybe eat some stuff you shouldn't eat. You can either snowball or you can set a trajectory and follow that higher trajectory. And that's again, that's what this whole thing is all about, and it's working.
Yeah, I mean, it affects one decision can affect a lot of different things, and you got your heart rate, you got your days on fitness, and the other big metric is days in chair or nights in chair
Yeah,
that
the
you fall
nights in
asleep.
chair are way down,
So if
way
those
down.
metrics are on the right numbers, then you're on the right path.
Yeah, yeah. Fitbit doesn't track nights in chair. Neck does.
No, so I'm interested to just know if you don't mind elaborating a little bit more about like your experience with Sunnyside. What is your favorite feature that you found to be the most helpful for you?
Um, the calendar planning tool. Literally sitting down, and you'll get a recommendation. The app will say, based on last week and your trend, here's what we think. To be able to take that recommendation and then look at my calendar and say, look, I know last week Thursday was a dry day, but I've got a client dinner, and there's no intention there to say I'm just going to tell my client, sorry, I can't drink tonight because it's dry day on my app. I'm not doing that. But say, okay, but Wednesday, shift it around. And so I when you set that total, and then you go for those dry days, to be able to make a plan that comprehends that if you don't have, I have a fairly consistent life, but things come up and I know it far enough advance, I can set the plan to the reality of the week I'm about to have. And I think that's the planning feature. Once you set that plan, if you're a planner like me, and you have a little bit of discipline or maybe a lot, set the plan. And I'm a diver too, scuba diver. So, you plan the dive plan, get back on the boat. That's how it works. And I think about my drinking kind of like that. I'm going to set the plan. I'm going to drink to the plan, um, and then I'm going to have a good week. It's that simple. So I love that calendar function.
That's so good. That's so good. I love it. If somebody was to ask you, hey, Don, you're doing really good. I love, the results. I can see a difference in you. I heard you talking about mindful drinking. How can I get started with that? What would you answer that
It,
question with?
it it's the same thing. I tell them, first of all, there's only a couple types of drinkers out there. One is the drinker that's very happy with the amount they drink, and that doesn't say they drink a little or a lot. They're right where they need to be, and that's great. If you're comfortable with your relationship with alcohol, great. Um, then there's those who are not comfortable, but they decide not to do anything. They don't accept that they have the ability to change, and so they just keep doing it. That's mindless. And then there's those who try, and they know they've got an issue. They know they've got a relationship that they need to monitor and maybe change, and then they try. And those are the people, the ones that are at that point. I got there. I had a heck of a lot going on all at once that pushed me into my inflection point of needing to do something different. Um, However you get there, however a friend gets there, I think they know I'm the person to talk to. And, I tell them I have friends who have just said, that's it, I quit. And they've been successful. A lot of them have just done it. And that's impressive. Good for you. But if that's not you, if that's just setting you up for failure, or you want to try something different, you really can change the way you behave. And then I get into my, yoga teacher mode, and just tell them that it all comes down to making choices. And in yoga, we make a decision to breathe differently. We make the decision to close our eyes, and we start to feel the benefits. Then you start to move the body. Then the body can start to get into it. But really, if you get back to the basics, it's a moving meditation, and it's learning how to slow things down with your breath, and then start to truly feel what's going on. And so it gets a little weird for some people sometimes when I speak like this, but it just, there's this power that we have that we just give away, um, to really make an impact. And if you're at that point, and if you think you've got a relationship with the bottle that you need, you do. If you're thinking about it, it's there. So now what are you going to do about it? And if you'd like to try something that worked for me, and I'll be your accountability buddy. I offer this to anybody that I recommend the app to. Like, if you want to talk to me about it, your experience, call me. And I've had people call and talk about it, and it's just, and I'm like this guy that just said, help me get through a night. He's not, I don't think he's mindfully drinking today. I don't know what he's doing today. I just know he made a decision that on one night he wanted to have a different outcome. And so he behaved differently. And I was really proud of him. And we all have that ability to make that decision for a day or a week or a month or the rest of your life that you're going to behave differently. Um, and again, I'm not going to quit drinking. I love whiskey. I love martinis. Um, I'm not throwing the beer back because I'm drinking a lot less beer. It's not on strategy for what I'm trying to get done health wise, but I'll have some drinks tonight. My kid's coming in from New York. We're going to dinner. We'll have some drinks. It'll be fun. Um, but I know I'm going to put some dry days together next week, and I'll have a fun holiday, and I'll keep it in check, and I got a 12 pack of these for the holidays, so I got my cheats in place.
Yeah, exactly like you said. I love that. You got a plan in place, and you've been just consistently improving, and you're to a point that it just seems like you're very happy. Do you have a plan, since plan is a big part of it, as you said? Is there a plan for 2024 that differs from 2023?
Um, yeah, I do. So I pick a word every year. I quit doing New Year's resolutions, and I picked a word this year was transition, and boy was it. Um, for me and for my kid, and this felt like a transition from who I was, and I'm now going someplace. My word for next year is action, and and you can put taking action or mindful action, however you want, but it's action. And to the extent that when I do drink, and on those days when I'm drinking more than maybe I should, that next day is not productive. It's not as productive. And so I think my thing for next year is I'm going to try to really have very few nights where I knowingly go deep and really just I'm mindful because I'm saying, you know what, tonight, just let it rip. I
Hmm.
know how tomorrow's going to go. I'm still making those decisions, maybe once a month, maybe twice a month, where I'm just like, it's I got a party I'm going to, I got an Uber, I'm staying over, I'm not driving, and I just let it rip. And um, I don't think those days are really good for me. Never was, never will be. And so I think I'm going to be mindful with even the days when I know it has a potential, and I have previously said let's go. I'm going to really work on saying tonight I'll put a limit and see if I can have just damn few of those just messy nights, because there's still I tell everybody there's still that monster inside of me. He's there, and I want, whether it's the alcohol, or whether it's the food, or whether it's the sleeping when I don't give myself the sleep. I want to see if I can be a little bit more consistent and not have a couple of, blow up weekends, blow up nights, and things like that. So try to make sure I'm not becoming this really, mindful drinker for five days out of the week, and then having a bumpy weekend or something like that. So that I think that's going to be the goal for this coming year.
I think that's a great goal. You're becoming more and more self-aware. You know where maybe you've improved greatly, and you're just going to continue to improve. And that's what it's all about, is
Yeah,
growth.
yeah.
Let me ask you this, and I laugh at myself in asking this because I feel like it's the laziest thing I could ask. But is there a question that I didn't ask you that you wish I would have, and why?
Hmm. I think a great question would be, do you ever see yourself going back to the old version of you?
Let's
And
hear it.
the answer is absolutely not. Absolutely not. On no level do I ever envision myself not taking my health as seriously as I do now. I don't envision me taking the Fitbit off and not worrying about steps, um, or not getting that reminder that, you only got 5 hours of sleep last night. That's why you feel like crap today. Um, or going back to, throwing down 3 or 4 beers every night just because I can. So the whole approach, and is the approach I'm going to take, because I'm going to be 60 next year. And I read a book when I was in my late 40s. A friend gave it to me. It's called Younger Next Year, and it debunks this mindset that Americans have that you get to 50 and then it's just a linear progression to 80 when the body breaks. And so every year you're just going to expect to get worse and worse and worse. And this book talked about it's a hockey stick. Yes, at 80, generally all of our bodies are going to break and there's nothing you can do about it. But if you concede your 50s, 60s, and 70s are a constant state of decline, nope. Think about the things that you can do to be healthier next year, not less healthy. And it's eat, sleep, drink, relationships, exercise. It's keeping your life full. And so I want to feel when I turn 60 like I just put in a decade where from 50 to 60, and if I stay on the path I'm on right now, I can guarantee you, and I remember my 50th birthday party, and I remember what I was doing when I turned 50, and I remember what I was doing in my early 50s, and I can tell you right now, I am healthier, a lot healthier at 60. And that's my plan, is to stick it. I'll get to November. I'm going to turn 60 healthier than when I was 50. And then I'm going to figure out, now, how do I get to 70 and feel that same way? And it's going to have to be more of the good stuff and less of the things that hold me back. And if I can continue with those moderation trends and focus in on the healthier stuff, who knows what 70 looks like. But I'm gonna feel like I at least got the first of the 3 decades of feeling younger next year. I got that one right.
You got the right insights. I mean, you got the plan and the right mindset for success, and I think, boy, and now I want to get that book because I'm not
Send me your
quite to
address.
50 yet, but
Send me your address. I'll make it a Christmas gift. I'd love to send it
oh,
to you.
that's very kind. I would definitely
Yeah,
take you up on that. So
yeah.
thanks.
Do it. Do it. And here's the other thing, and this is part of action. Um, Unfortunately, one of the things that happens to caregivers, my wife had Huntington's disease, and it is a long decline, 10, 20 years of just a steady decline. And as her frontline caregiver, uh, I got kicked out. I got kicked out pretty bad. It's not easy, and I know the alcohol was part of that. It was part of how I dealt with it. And you see it in other caregivers, whether they're dealing with Huntington's or dementia or cancer. Just the whole caregiving journey is really something I'm very sensitive about. And I'm trying to figure out if the thing I want to do is write a book about it. Um, and I don't know if I've got a book in me. I think I do.
You definitely do. You definitely
um,
do.
and I don't want it to be a downer. I think a lot of caregiving books are really sad, and there's no brightness to them. And the thing that, and this is, again, we're taking care of yourself. Everybody's got the, put your get an air mask on first, and that whole plane metaphor. That's easy to say. That's like one thing. But day in, day out, trying to find ways to keep yourself strong and not do the things that weaken you, so that and caregiving always ends. There's a point where you're no longer a caregiver, and you want to be something on the other side of that journey that has life left in it. And um, and even beyond that, if the book ever gets done, the cool thing is you develop some superhero powers through the caregiving journey, that if you can get to the other side, you're actually grateful. It's a hard thing to process, and uh, I think it took me a while after my wife passed away for me to even start to understand the gift of being put in a very difficult situation and then what that can do for you and as opposed to doing to you. And so I want to make sure caregivers out there who are sitting around and not taking care of themselves, either with the food or smoking or drugs or alcohol, and it's heavy in this Huntington's community, families get torn up. And I've got a bracelet on right now. It's a Huntington's bracelet. Family is everything, because it is a family disease, and it can rip apart families. And I've seen it happen. I didn't let it happen to mine. And I would like to help others not let whatever caregiving situation they're confronted with, let them know there's some nobility in what you're doing, and if you can get through to the other side, you're going to be a superhero. So
Yeah, I mean, I think in just listening to you first, I think you could definitely write this book in an angle that you would have liked to have had when you were going through those difficulties. And I think sometimes we have to go through some pretty dark things to really be able to come out with knowledge that can help other people. And I feel that from you. I feel like you have a lot of knowledge, and I feel like you have a helping, kind soul that could give back. So I encourage you to write that book, and you could give it your own unique spin. Maybe the parts that you didn't see in the other books that you wish you would have, that should be in yours.
Yeah. I've already got the website and the title. You ready?
I'm ready.
Yoga and Martinis.
Love it.
I said it to a woman who's a really good friend of mine, and she's in the Huntington's community. And I said, yoga and martinis saved my life. And she goes, I don't know about the martinis part, but I'm sure the yoga saved my life. I'm like, okay, well, we'll agree on half of the book. We've since had a few martinis together, so I think she understands the dynamic.
Well, I think you got 50-50. You'll draw them in from one or the other.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, this has been incredible, Don. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your experience, your successes, your struggles. You know, you put yourself out there, and we're vulnerable. And I really personally appreciate that. And I know that anyone that's going to hear this will as well. So thank you.
Yeah. And for anybody who listens, if you're thinking about it, take action, and you'll be surprised at how much discipline you actually have inside of you.
Amazing. Thanks. Thank you, Don.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Take it easy. Have a great holiday.
This podcast is brought to you by Sunnyside, the #1 alcohol moderation platform, having helped hundreds of thousands of people cut out more than 13 million drinks since 2020. And in fact, an independent study showed that Sunnyside reduced alcohol consumption by an average of 30% in 90 days. And as one of our members shared, Sunnyside helps me stay mindful of my drinking habits. It's not super restrictive, so if I'm craving a glass of wine with dinner, I just track it and I move on with my week. If you could benefit from drinking a bit less and being more mindful of when and how much you drink, head on over to sunnyside.co to get a free 15-day trial. You'll get access to everything that we offer, including tracking and planning tools, coaching from our experts, a vibrant community of people just like you, and the motivation and advice to stay on track with your health goals, all with no pressure to quit. That's sunnyside.co.